Okay, I think we've got most of the people here, and so hi guys, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining from. We're so glad that you could join us today. We have our guests Deanna with an E and Deanna with an I today, and so we're so glad that you could join us. Today we'll start off with Eileen with introductions, and we'll give you like a rundown of the event and everything. And so if you have any questions whenever we're talking, just put it in the chat and we'll make sure to answer your questions. So Eileen, please take it away.
Thanks, Ari. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have you guys here. So again, good evening or good morning, like depending on where you're joining us from. And so today, this event is called Think Engineering, the Sky's the Limit. So this speaker panel is in collaboration with ThinkSTEM. So my name is Eileen and I'm one of the founders of STEM to the Sky, and I'll have Annie introduce herself as well.
Hi, my name is Annie. I am the other co-founder of STEM to the Sky. We're so excited to have you all here, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'll pass it on to Sari next.
And a special thank you to our panelists, of course. We have Deanna with the E, Hood, and Deanna with the I, Iracheta today, who will be sharing their wonderful insights and experiences with us today. And as mentioned before, we're collaborating with ThinkSTEM for this month's speaker panel, so I will pass it on to one of the founders, Oana.
Hi everyone, I'm Moana, one of the founders of ThinkSTEM, and we're thrilled to hear from all of our panelists today. I'll pass it over to you, Jen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen. I'm the other founder of ThinkSTEM. Welcome and thanks for attending. And now I will be passing to Sari, who will be hosting and moderating today's speaker panel.
Thanks, Eugen. So hi everyone, my name is Sari. I am the International Marketing and Outreach Director for STEM to the Sky, and I'm an incoming freshman at the University of Tokyo. And again, thank you for everyone for coming today. And as a quick warm up today, and as a way for us to get an idea of who's joining us, please type your name, grade, and where you're from in the chat. Yes, so the Zoom chat feature, please type your name, grade, and where you're from.
All right, and as you guys do that, I'm going to go ahead and go towards the event overview. So for today's event, we hope to essentially showcase the diversity and wide array of opportunities in the field of engineering to students around the world, and hopefully inspire some of you to explore and pursue a career in engineering yourself. So our two panelists today will be sharing their respective career experiences and advice in many engineering fields, including manufacturing, mechanical, electrical, and robotics engineering. And of course, there are many other fields to explore, but we're very excited and grateful to have Deanna with an E and Deanna with an I today to speak with you. And I will pass it to Sari next. Oops.
So although progress has been made, there is still a lack of representation in engineering. Women and minorities remain underrepresented in this field. And so through events like these, we hope to encourage greater diversity and inclusion in a fascinating and ever-growing world of engineering through Deanna and Deanna. They will share their various careers and pathways in engineering, so please stay tuned. And here's an overview of today's event. Next slide, please. So first, we'll have Eileen briefly introduce STEM to the Sky. Then we'll have Oana give a brief introduction of ThinkSTEM. Then we'll have our amazing panel members introduce themselves. And that will be the time where they will give a general overview of their background and their career.
And then we will transition into the main part of the event, which is a Q&A and discussion. So using the topics and questions that you all have provided us in the event Rsvp form, the panelists will offer some deeper insights into what it really means to be an engineer, and you will also be able to ask the panelists questions live. And lastly, we will then share our panelist contact information for any further inquiries or information. And we'll also share some information on how you can get involved with both STEM to the Sky and ThinkSTEM just to wrap up our event. And now I will be handing it over to Eileen, who will explain a little more about STEM to the Sky.
Thanks, Annie. So STEM to the Sky is a student-led 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission is to empower middle and high school students around the world, no matter their background, to pursue their STEM aspirations. So if you go to the next slide, I think it has more details about our mission. So yeah, so again, like I said, our mission is to showcase diverse careers and faces in STEM by showcasing interviews. And we also hope to empower students and advocate for a more equitable STEM community. And so ways that we do this are by conducting and featuring interviews with STEM professionals, as well as hosting speaker panels like this one. And we also have a monthly newsletter that you guys can join on our website too. I can put the link in the chat. Next slide. Okay, so here are just some numbers that we're very proud of. So STEM to the Sky currently has more than 20 team members. We've featured more than 25 amazing STEM professionals. We've reached over 55 countries, which is awesome. We love our international audience. And we've also reached over 200 schools. And we hope these numbers will continue to grow. Now I'll pass it on to ThinkSTEM.
Thanks, Eileen. So basically, ThinkSTEM is a student-led 501c3 nonprofit, and we aspire to increase STEM accessibility in communities disproportionately affected by the education gap. Through our STEM totes and workshop series, we aim to foster creativity in students and encourage them to pursue their interests. And now I'll pass it over to you, Jen, to go into a bit more detail.
Thanks, Deanna. So as you remember, I'm the other founder of ThinkSTEM, and here are just some numbers that we wanted to show you guys. So we've hosted 6 speaking events and panels through our STEM Connect program, which is a monthly webinar program designed for educating youth in STEM. And we've also reached out to over 8,000 youth through our outreach programs. We've offered many volunteer and leadership opportunities, and now our goal is to deliver 50+ STEM kits by 2023, which is exciting, especially because we just started our first fundraiser. So yeah, that's, I think I'm passing it on to someone, I can't really remember. Yeah, I think I'm passing it to Deanna Hood, who will start us off.
Hello, it's amazing to be here because I am so in love with these two organizations. I'm so glad that they've come together and that I can be a part of it. So I'm happy to be here. Let me introduce myself. I am Deanna with an E. I don't usually get the honor of being with other Deannas, so I'm happy for that. I personally love to sing, dance, climb, learn. Mostly I'm a big nerd, and I love traveling as a way to do that. I have learned so much from living in 6 countries so far, and I've visited 45, but I have plenty more to go, lots more cultures to see, and maybe I'll come visit you in these different countries along the way. But another thing is that you could call me a maker. I'm shown there like making a fabric that I designed with some software that I coded, and I'm making it on a loom that I made myself. I made this necklace, and it's a bit of fun. And what I've found also fun is repairing things, especially for other people. So on the right is me repairing some medical equipment in rural Nicaragua so that this centrifuge can be used for blood tests again. So what am I doing here? I am all of these things, yes, and I'm also an engineer. So I specifically am an engineer on a skin printing robot that's called Lego. So on the left is me with some burn surgeons that we're developing the device to help. And one of these surgeons is a co-inventor of spray on skin on the right is an example of the healing outcomes from the spray-on skin process, which is an alternative to painful skin grafts. And we're extending this treatment to full thickness wounds. And for full thickness wounds, if you deliver this treatment with our robot, that you can reduce the treatment time by 3 weeks, which gives us a lot of hope that we'll be able to help the body regenerate functional, healthy skin for burn survivors instead of scar tissue, which you can't sweat, it doesn't move, and so you have to stay in an air-conditioned room for the rest of your life sometimes. So how we do that, we don't spray it on, but we 3D bioprint it on. And thankfully, I work at a company called Inventia Life Science, and bioprinting is what we do. That's what we're experts in. And the majority of our company work on the pink box that's at the bottom there, which is called Rastrum. This is the Rastrum bioprinter that's sold around the world. And it uses precision engineering to create tiny cell structures that are the size of a pinhead, but they're made up of small droplets that contain cells. So that is a very difficult engineering challenge, I can tell you. And those structures could have any different type of cell in there for different applications. There are some examples on the screen. And as an example, you can put disease cells into structures and do research on how the disease spreads in 3 dimensions and how, for example, micro-replica tumors react to different treatments for design of new drugs, for example. So Zach and I on the left are the founding engineers on the burns treatment device. We're part of a larger team of engineers and scientists and lots of other disciplines. And the cells that we use are healthy skin cells from the patient. And we don't print tiny structures, but large structures containing these cells directly onto the wound. So another big engineering challenge, but we reckon we're up for it. Slide, please. How did I get here? Actually, just a big happy coincidence. Zach and I met doing the same volunteering in Nicaragua many years ago. And I just fell into this role because he was working at Inventia, and it's sort of been a series of happy coincidences that I have gotten where I am throughout my career. I actually never heard of engineering before I signed up for it. And I just trusted people who told me that if I liked science and puzzles and helping people, then I would probably enjoy it, and they weren't wrong. And because I enjoy helping people, I have found projects through my career that allow me to do that. But again, it was always just like one step at a time. This is where I'm at now. But for you, I'm more than happy to help you with like just making that first step that could turn into anything. So that's me. I'll leave it there and I'll tell you more later on.
Thanks, Deanna. I love how you put karaoke singer as one of your,
I never said I was good, but I do love.
Don't worry, I'm also an avid karaoke singer, and good or bad, doesn't really matter. Now I will be handing it over to Deanna with an I, who is a manufacturing and mechanical engineer.
Hi, so I already have questions, so I'll wait to ask that one for Deanna when we get to that. But hi everyone, my name is Deanna Iracheta, Deanna with an I. I like to start with, I am based in Chicago in the US, but I am an immigrant, so I was born and grew up in Mexico, and so I've lived about half of my life in Mexico and now the second half here in the US. And so I just kind of have that journey, which will look back to a really big vision I have that ties up engineering and kind of like my background. So I have a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I graduated in 2019. And I did my education in community college, and then I transferred to a 4-year university. And so I kind of saw the transition there as well. I also like to mention that both my parents had careers in STEM. They studied them, but I still didn't really know what they did. And so even though I was right there, I still didn't really know the opportunities that I have there. But luckily I found my way into mechanical engineering, and now I do manufacturing engineering at work. So I've been a manufacturing engineer for about 4 years now. Most recently, my last year, I've been focused on automation and design. And so I lead a team that programs the robots and then sets does any changeover for the robots. And I just find it really cool because you're able to pretty much tell it what to do, and it just kind of like does that. For me, it's more production rather than like research, but I find it really interesting doing it now, which is something that I didn't expect when I was first studying. I like science, I like problem solving, and that's what lured me into STEM. And then eventually I just started finding things that I like and kind of pointing my career towards that. So you definitely don't have to have everything figured out when you start college, even then. And so back to kind of like my background, besides from being an engineer, I am an advocate for STEM, and more specifically for Latinas in engineering. So after finishing my education, Latinas represent only 2% in engineering roles in the US, maybe a little bit less. And so to me, I always saw the lack of representation of Latinas within the engineering fields, which led me to wanting to share my story and connect with other Latinas across the country and then now internationally. And so I launched Latina Engineer, which is started more like a blog, and now it has a community online, an international conference. And it was just a way that I was able to give back things that I was learning, because I was still going through good experiences and bad experiences, sharing that, being able to connect with other Latinas pretty much everywhere right away, which was something that I had not accessed without the social media or without going into the webs, like I call it. And so that has definitely made a really big impact in my career, personally feeling like I belong, but also being able to give back and create resources. So in 2020, we launched our International Latina Engineer Week, which is a conference, a week long, where we create resources. We have different speakers, kind of sessions, kind of like this. It's open to everyone, even though it's aimed at Latinas. The topics are pretty broad for everyone. And we have developed scholarships and giveaways and things like that, just because I want to also spread the news of like, it's really interesting. There's a lot of future and opportunities in STEM careers. And then along with that, we have a nonprofit that helps us create this conference and continue to connect with each other. Okay, yeah, so besides from that, I've also been involved in different other experiences. So I share my story into different opportunities, both national and internationally, and being able to connect with other girls that are also interested in STEM. At the bottom right, you can see a picture of the first in-person event that we did for our conference. We were able to bring more than 35 Latinas in engineering. And that was just amazing because it was the first time that I was in a room with that many, with more than like 2. And so that was just kind of like a big milestone of getting there. I've been part of SHIP, which is another very similar nonprofit for Hispanics in engineering. And I don't like to brag, but I do have that I got an award in 2020 just from continue to trying to be a role model and inspiring other people and continue to share my story, whether it is a good experience or a bad experience, because we get to learn from all of these. And lastly, if you want to learn more about the conference, the link is at the bottom. Again, we welcome everyone. And if you find something that might be helpful for you that you want to join, we're more than happy to have you there as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Deanna with an I. I'm going to now pass it on to Eileen to get us started with the discussion.
Definitely. So I think before we open it up to live questions, we wanted to cover some of the most popular RSVP questions we got. Okay, so yeah, the first one we wanted to ask both of the panelists, and feel free to, add on and pick back off of each other's ideas and answers as well. But we wanted to ask, like, what does a typical day actually look like for you guys? Because I think a lot of people are wondering that.
Okay, I'll go first because I'm unmuted. I can give you an example. Thanks for the question, because I think that this is one of the hardest things to explain to people considering engineering. I work on a skin printing robot. I work with lots of people, lots of different disciplines, and we each have our role. And my role specifically is electrical and software. So what that could look like is, an example is that we have a feature where we want to avoid the robot coming into contact with the patient. This is a safety feature. It's important for like lots of reasons. So we want to be able to detect the patient, and then move the robot away. It sounds simple, and you might actually be designing a circuit that does a similar thing. Like if you've ever designed a circuit, sometimes one of the simplest sensors is just to detect someone and do something, detect something, turn a light on. For me, what that looks like in the process of being an engineer on a medical device is that we have to work with the surgeons to understand like how close is too close. And then I have to work with the biomaterials scientists who have experience in this bioprinting and ask them how far is too far for the droplets to land in the correct way. And then I have to work with the industrial designers and say, what form factor does a sensor have to be to fit into the design of this device? And have to work with other people and be like, how do we keep it sterile? That's a hard question. But then as eventually we'll find a sensor, and as the electrical engineer, maybe I'll design the circuit that can support reading this sensor. And interesting in the robotics context is that I can run the robot that we have purchased, I can run the cables inside the robot arm. And so I'll do the circuit and the communications for that, but also I haven't done that before. So I reach out to other roboticists who use this robot that, like, I've never met them, but I reach out to them and say, you've done this before. Like, what did you learn about passing electronic signals through the inside of the arm so that the cables aren't dangling around in the operating theater? And then they'll give advice. And the next thing I might work on when the sensor is being read is the software that makes the algorithm of, if we are too close, then move away, and this sort of software support for the feature. And I'll work with mechanical engineers to mount the sensor into different prototypes that we've designed and ultimately the final product. So this is, maybe it doesn't all happen like in the one day, but every day sort of looks like that, where I'm talking to lots of different people who know things that I don't know, and we're working together to solve that specific problem of integrating a sensor. And that's what it looks like on a skin printing robot, but I would do the same work integrating a sensor into the benchtop bioprinter, and that would be the same work but for a different reason. So same sensor integration, and all of the processes are the same, but it might be a sensor to detect if the door is open, because the customers have said, oh, if we leave the door open, the sterility of our cell structures is impacted. Please help us stop printing if the door is open. Again, you're going to pick a sensor, mechanically mount it, and enable it in the algorithm with software. So I can apply this same process to lots of different projects, and I have done this same sort of day-to-day work for lots of different reasons in my career so far, and hopefully that gives a bit of a glimpse. I'll be doing the same work 10 years from now for a different reason, I hope.
Thank you so much, Deanna with an E. I love how you spoke on that collaborative spirit within engineering, and how like the basis of electrical engineering and the circuitry can be applied to just like several different projects across many contexts. And it's really cool how you've gotten to get exposure to so many different types of engineering through these collaborations. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Is it the same in your work, Deanna? I'm sure you don't work alone ever.
It's really interesting because now I'm going to explain to you the mechanical part of, because we pretty much do the same thing, but it can apply to different fields. So for us, the robots grab things and put them in different places, but our parts can be pretty delicate. So I have to figure out, how are we going to pick it up? Are we going to pick it up with magnets? Are we going to pick it up with a gripper that closes and grabs it? How much force can we put there? What material can we use depending on how delicate the part is, or what's able to come in contact with it? And so my day can go from doing that research, taking as much information as I can, to creating designs, 3D models on my computer, then taking those and getting quotes from different companies to make them, or if we have the resources in our own company. Sometimes I'm talking to tool makers and or a tool room to kind of like explain this is how we want to do it, how long will it take, and also trying to learn how to best design something so that it can be done faster or more economically as well. And then from then on, once we have something ready, then I'm go ahead and I go and install it. And this is where I like to bring the team that I'm able to work with, that is like the automation team, because I've been able to add some leadership also into my day-to-day. I have a team now that I didn't have last year, and it has added a lot of happiness to my day-to-day career because I really enjoy working with different people. And so once we have everything ready, we go and explain how we're going to mount it. We have drawings that tell you what type of screws you need, how long, how it goes, the orientation, and then testing it, running a program and making sure that it's doing what we want it to do, making any adjustments. Maybe something didn't fit correctly and we have to go roll back and like adjust that and then come back again. And then other than that, it's just, yeah, most of that. And then just in general, like I was learning some of the other stuff that I get to kind of like create is like, for example, how are we going to mount this sensor that Deanna wants to like needs for like the electrical component. So they really go like hand in hand. And this is where you can kind of see that one project is going to take multiple people with different skills.
Thank you so much, Deanna with an I, for sharing your story. Definitely these complementary teams like working together is like key in engineering, and we loved hearing your unique perspectives on that. Now I'll pass it on to Sari for the next question.
Yeah, so another question that we had from our RSVP form was, what motivates you to keep pursuing engineering, and have you had any doubts or regrets about your career? It's a pretty deep question, I must admit.
I'll start this one. So I'm a really creative person. And so being able to create a solution to something, and especially in my specific job where I'm able to think about something and then make it on the computer and then see it come to like in person, like in 3D, it's really fascinating to me because I'm able to combine creativity and like math and science, which usually when we think of engineering, we only think of the STEM side, but you're able to combine multiple things. And so one, it makes me really happy to see that whole process, but also just problem solving, constantly thinking, innovating something, like creating something new. And I think that's what just kind of keeps me driving to continue wanting to do what I do.
I love that. I think it's so important to really see like your work like come to life. Like I think that's such a big part, and I definitely can agree like with my own schoolwork. Like I love seeing my own like product coming to life. So that's really cool to hear from like an engineering perspective as well. Deanna with an E, do you have anything to add?
It's the same, and it's I was going to say it's probably the same for all engineers, but I mean, some engineers are in it for the money. I could earn more doing other products. I work where I work because of the impact that I can make. But also I do this in my free time. Like if I take time off, I'm doing the same sort of work, because like when I make software just for fun or circuits just for fun, it's because I like this feeling of, when we say problem solving, like what it looks like is that there's a bug in my code and I won't go to sleep until I fix the bug, because I'm so curious about what could be making it not work. Or if I need to develop an algorithm, then I'm like, oh, I'm just thinking about it all day. And that's what motivates me, is that I really, really like doing engineering. And that becomes important when we have any doubts. And I think that was the second part of the question of like, did I ever doubt my career? There was a time at the end of my university degree so I got into it because I'm like a nerd. And then I was starting to think, because I was young, I was like, okay, that's all I thought about. And then when I was a bit older, I was like, hang on, can I actually help people with this? Because all they told me is like how to make circuits. They didn't say why I'm making them. And the biomedical or medical engineers, they're making circuits for a reason, like they're making a heart monitor circuit, so maybe I should do that. So I considered actually changing disciplines of engineering, but it wasn't necessary in the end because I can have all of the impact and work as an electrical engineer if I choose the projects that are important to me. And that means I can be happier day to day. I would not be happier as a surgeon. I wouldn't be happier as a scientist. I'm happiest making things and fixing bugs in my software.
I love that. Like from both of your perspectives, I can really tell that like engineering is definitely like a field that's super interesting and super fascinating. And it's so cool to hear how, you know, it's a field that keeps you motivated.
Did you ever doubt yourself, Deanna, if it was the thing for you?
Definitely. And there's always up and downs, you know. When I was in school, every single semester was the same story. I was struggle at the beginning, and there was the end. I was kind of like a little bit more comfortable, but it was the same thing every semester until I finished. And then once I started working, you know, you start as a new young engineer, you're still asking a lot of questions, and so it can make you think like, hey, am I a good engineer? Am I going to get somewhere? I also saw it again when I changed jobs. You're new, you're going into a new field, going into automation. You're again learning a lot really fast. And it takes a little bit to like get used to it and feel comfortable and say, hey, I got this. But continue looking back to where I was when I started to now kind of gives me the confidence again to say like, hey, I've gotten through these challenges. I can take on more and continue to advance.
It's hard. Like it's not, I don't do it because it's easy. I do it because it's worth it. And here's another question for you. Did you ever have people doubt you?
I think yes. Maybe not as upfront, like telling me, but like you can always sense it. And it comes with being a minority, being a woman, being young in the field. I've only have 4 years of experience. And so little by little, you kind of just start proving like taking on more projects and more responsibilities. And it's more of like what you want to do and what makes you happy, and maybe not focus so much on like what other people think is your limit.
People can be so wrong. I've heard stories that like hearing them, I was crying because some people are so close-minded that because there aren't currently many women and people of color in engineering, there's a wonderful astrophysicist in Australia, and she was told that she like couldn't be a physicist even though she was the top of her class. And it was like, are you just saying that because she's an Indigenous student? Like, what other reason do you have to be saying that? And people will hold us back unless we know so clearly that it's either something that we think we're good at, which usually we don't think we're good at things, or that we know it's something that we want.
I think that's a good segue to our next question about diversity and like working with minorities. So Yujin, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, of course. So there are many misconceptions about engineering, specifically regarding like the demographics of engineers. And many women and minorities may feel that engineering isn't for them and may not feel welcome in the field. So in your opinion, what is the best method we can take into action to increase diversity in the field? And what can we do to increase representation? And what would you wish to see more of in the field?
Oh, I want to see more Deannas.
Should I start?
Yeah, I feel like you're crushing it in this space.
Okay. I didn't get all of the parts of the question. So could you just do like a little recap of like all the points? Because I don't want to miss any part of it.
Yeah, sure. So what is the best method we can take to increase diversity in engineering, in your opinion?
Yeah, so there's very many different ways to create change. I always start with everybody is a role model within STEM, especially if they're a minority or they're not like your typical student that goes into STEM. And you become a role model to everyone, whether it is your younger siblings, whether it is cousins, whether it is neighbors. One time I had a neighbor, a little girl neighbor, come to me and ask me why I was dressed the way I was dressed. And I was wearing a dress, but I was able to take the time and tell her like, hey, this is what I do. I'm an engineer. I'm still able to wear a purple dress to work and then come back home and, have a fun life. And besides from that, I always kind of go and try to create change wherever I go. So I didn't wait to I saw something that didn't exist. There was a lack of maybe groups to bring Latinas together. And so it just started in social media on Instagram. And then from there, we started just growing it, volunteering into different events, whether it is a talk or a mentoring program, trying to search for mentors as well. And then just sharing the things that you're going with. If you're in a class or in an event and you see someone that might be in your field or that you could connect with, go ahead and reach out to them. Because I think the biggest thing I did was I would sit in class and I would just kind of keep to myself. And if there was another female in the room, I wouldn't reach out. And if I were to go back again, I would go sit with her and connect with her and create something with her. Like, hey, we can make a change, or what do we like? What do we enjoy? How can we pass notes? Things like that. And then once you also, as you continue in your career, if you join into a company, you can also create change there. We are starting a group of women in technical roles at our company. We went from 0 female engineers in the office to 3, and all 3 of us started taking action and started getting together from different divisions of the company so that we could meet once a month. And so there's always opportunities. Just don't be afraid to be the one person that asks questions or volunteers to start it, because we always need that one person to do that.
Yeah, I'm so inspired to see the photo that you had of 35 Latina engineers in one room, because this is what I think is overlooked when we talk about the numbers of in just representation in general. It's you can have a low percentage of representation of people who either look like you or are like you in any sort of way that you feel unique, but that doesn't necessarily contribute to a feeling of loneliness or isolation. It depends how, if there are 2% or I don't know, 30, suppose there are 35%, then if they're all in different rooms, you don't see it, you feel alone. But if you think of 100, then you actually have 35 people and you can bring them together. And so in the industry, there are not many women engineers currently, but I'm so excited for that's not going to be the case for much longer, because we figured out how to address things, but I'll come back to that. But that we can, so there are not many women in the industry, but my company, there are 40% and 40% of our engineering team are women. So I can work with heaps of women because I'm at a company that has brought all of the people together. And if there's still a group that isn't represented enough in a workplace, then outside of the workplace, you can create those feelings of togetherness and not aloneness when you bring people from different minority groups into the same room. So it's hugely important for retention, because then you feel more normal, but also for attraction, that it's these programs, this literal conversation that we're having now is us being role models of we have done it. You're not alone in thinking you might want to do this, and you may not see anyone in the room there with you, but we're here and have done it first. And so this is one of the things that we've learned of how, so suppose you want to address diversity, and the first thing for any problem is to understand what is causing the problem. That's what an engineer would do, is do this root cause analysis. And we've been speaking about gender so far, but it's in diversity, we're talking about thought diversity, like everyone thinks differently. Some people from different backgrounds are more resourceful. I love being in other countries where people reuse everything for different reasons. Some people are slow or fast thinkers. I'm conservative, I'm not a risk taker. And this sort of diversity you want in a team because it will perform better. And there are studies on this. Diversity makes better teams. And so to get that diversity of thought in a team, you need to support diversity of backgrounds. And sometimes people can be held back from lack of role models. And so the misconceptions that we have in engineering that we see hold women back is that girls don't know about engineering. So hey, here we are, we're telling people about it. They think they can't help people with it. So here we are again, like correcting that misunderstanding. Engineers only ever work to solve a problem that someone has. Like, we're not doing things just for fun. And so that impact is there. But then even when girls are interested in, like, okay, that sounds like a cool career, they'll question if they're good enough to do it. And we have like seen now in research that women and people of color are self-censoring in applying for jobs unless they meet all of the requirements. And that is something that happens in industry, but I think it also happens when people are considering if they deserve to do a degree at university, even just to try to get into something. And other guys, like guys, for example, they just try it. And if they're actually not good enough to do it, they change careers and move to something else. Whereas girls will be like, if I'm not 100% sure that I can crush this, I won't give it a shot, which is, we've been raised differently. And so these systemic behaviors, we're starting to understand them. So I would encourage you to try and fail at some small things yourself, just for like practice. But then for other people who think, yeah, totally, I could do it, then they might wonder, will I be accepted? And again, this is where work of support communities like Latinas in engineering is so important, for showing people that it's like, you only need the one space, where the one company where you can be accepted. And I can tell you that at least one exists, and I'm sure there are many more out there, and there will be so many more as time goes on, because there's a shortage of engineers, and anything companies can do to increase the supply of engineers applying is in their best interest. And that looks like making spaces more inclusive, that people like, they can see themselves working there. So now there's actually competition in industry. I think that was another of the questions of like, what can be done more of? Like, companies are getting it now, that there's effort to be put in to make workplaces inclusive, and they need to do it to be like the place where engineers want to work, because we have the choice ultimately. There's such a shortage of engineers that the power is kind of in our court. That's not the analogy, but yeah, so we know the problems now, and it's got me very excited for, I don't know, 5-10 years from now, when you're all in industry.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And I truly love both of your perspectives, and I'm so glad that we are talking about it, because conversation and discussion is really needed to create this type of change. And, you know, you both are really inspiring in all of the work that you do. So thank you for both of your perspectives. Just looking at the time, I think we want to move on to the live segment now. So we've answered some questions from the event RSVP form, but we wanted to open it up to you guys in the audience now, and feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or if you're not able to speak, you can use the chat option, and you can ask if you have any questions about engineering or career or anything else. You can feel free to speak up now. And I think we'll keep the chat open. I think Linnea has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, I feel like I'm often overwhelmed when I think about like all of the opportunities that are in STEM, especially because I don't find myself like particularly drawn to, like the math aspect. Not even because like I really don't like math, but just because I don't want to spend my life doing that. And so I was wondering if either of you had that kind of like feeling in the past and how you overcame that, because like I see all of these people with like really cool STEM focused jobs. Like both of you have really interesting careers, but like it just doesn't seem accessible, I guess. And I was wondering what your perspective was on that.
I got here by accident. I think everyone kind of says that, but it would have been overwhelming if I put more thought into it. And I remember being disappointed when I finished my degree, because then I had to make another choice about my life. And I got very overwhelmed at that point of like, oh no, what's next? I thought I was enjoying just following the instructions of people who are like, here, do this engineering. Okay. The thing that can help is I think we want exposure to opportunities to know that there's something in the general direction that we're headed. But in terms of like day-to-day actions, you can just think about the next step. And that can look like choosing science subjects if you enjoy them, and then most universities in Australia at least do a common engineering first year. If you then from that you get exposure and you can choose which sort of engineering you can go into. And after that, you can choose an application that you'll apply your skills to. So you don't have to choose that from the beginning. And if you know that that's something that you don't have figured out, and that plan somehow requires you to know more than you know, then the strategy we have to use sometimes is to guess and correct and like be flexible. I'm like a recovering perfectionist, and I only make decisions if I know that it's the correct one, but we can't know that sometimes. And what is encouraging for me to see is that, so like I met a woman the other day. She is a teacher. She worked as a teacher for, I don't know, 10 years. And now she's retraining as a software engineer. And it will never be too late. If this is what you're destined to do, you'll find it eventually. You can just speed up that process if you make these like educated guesses. But you don't have to worry as much about not liking maths as you think. There will be math subjects and it will be hard, and you might fail them 3 times and you can still be a great engineer even if that happens to you. There's support available, but it can be hard to ask for help sometimes if you're a perfectionist, but it will make your life easier. And then when you get into industry, I work with a girl who was told that she couldn't be a good engineer because she didn't do like the maths at high school, and she's a wonderful mechanical engineer because she has learned enough to do her job well. We're not actually doing equations every day. I love math myself, but I don't get it from my work, so I do it on the side because it's the way of thinking that engineers have, that we use maths for. Like you learn the maths so that it shapes your brain a little bit, but then you don't necessarily do maths every day. That's my experience. Do you do much in your work, Deanna?
No, not like writing equations and like trying to figure it. It's more of the way of like thinking of problem solving and trying to understand a problem, why something is changing something else. As far as the question, getting back a little bit to the question, I think were you done, Deanna? I could go ahead, right? I didn't know if it was just like if you needed to say something else, or I could just keep talking.
Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So it's mostly I would recommend follow something that interests you. That's pretty much how I just kind of got in my career. I went into physics and I really liked it, even though I wasn't that good at it. It was the first class where I was really struggling, but there was something intriguing about it. And so I went on and I went into college, community college, thinking I was going to be a physics major. Then from there, I found something else that I like a little bit better. And I started shifting my career depending on what I like and what something I learned. I definitely don't think that you could pick wrong, even if you feel like you haven't evaluated every single opportunity, because there are some types of engineering that are really they're so diverse. You have so many different things you could cover. For example, in mechanical engineering, you can go into fluids, thermodynamics, mechanical design. There's so much that you can do that even if you pick that major, you can then specialize into one. Or after that, maybe you also have a specialty, but then you start working, you start figuring out the things that you like and that you don't, and you start pointing towards that. Get involved into projects that spark your interest, learn from there, learn from the people that are working with you, get especially in like extracurricular clubs, activities, internships. Those would all kind of like shape your path as you go. I definitely did not understand what every single type of engineering was when I was trying to select one, but I just went for the one that was really interesting. And if you also want to learn more, then reach out to someone that has that degree or is working into something that you're interested in. Ask them what they do and like what they like about it. And this is where I like social media and like the internet, is that you can do that very easily, and you can send a message and hey, I'm interested in learning about this. I especially do it when if it's LinkedIn, it's like send a message, ask them why you want to connect with them, and most likely someone's going to get back to you, and they're gonna be happy to share about the work they do because they like doing what they do.
And I'm reminded, I thought it was so perfect that you mentioned that Latinas in Engineering started as a blog, right? If somebody asked me to create this organization, I would feel overwhelmed. Where do you start? And you start small. And so when you could have like a little side project or something that you don't need to, like low commitment, I guess, is maybe a way to start small, of like just some little side project yourself, so that you can do this learning that Deanna is talking about of like, what do I enjoy? You can kind of do that yourself if you go on Instructables or Hackaday and you just follow what they're doing, kind of like Lego instructions of like, okay, I think I'm enjoying that. Or start small of like, something breaks around your house, it's already broken, so maybe take it apart and just have a look at it. That's something that I find enjoyable, is trying to fix things as kind of an accessible form of engineering and low risk, because provided you don't hurt yourself, you've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, awesome. Great question and great responses. I think unfortunately we're a bit short on time, so I'm gonna pass it to Sari just to wrap up the Q&A.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone's questions and thank you for all of your answers. It's so interesting to hear from engineers, just because I don't think I really have like the opportunity to hear from actual engineers on a day-to-day basis. So it's really cool hearing about your experiences, and I definitely want to apply this to like whatever field I'm going to end up in the future. But yes, like how as Annie said, we'll have to end the Q&A and discussion here. But so before we all go, I think we might go a little over time, so I apologize for that, but we want to take a quick Zoom selfie with everyone here. And so I'm going to unpin Deanna and Deanna, and if everyone could turn on your cameras if you'd like, that'd be great. We'll take like a screenshot and we'll post this later on our Instagram. And yeah, wait, give me a second, let me just get ready to. Okay. And I'll be taking a couple, so do not worry. We'll try to get the best shot. So yeah, if you could, it'd be great if you guys could turn on your camera, and we'll take it in like 5 seconds. Okay. Is everyone good to go? Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Taking one more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you guys. And if you'd like to be tagged on our Instagram post, please feel free to put your Instagram in the chat and we'll make sure to tag you. And if you've also mentioned that you'd want to be tagged on the RSVP post, we'll make sure that you'll be tagged. And so, yeah, thank you for everyone for coming today. It was really, really great to have you all here. This concludes Think Engineering, the Sky's the Limit. Thank you to our amazing panelists, Deanna with an E and Deanna with an I. And before we go, we want to do a quick recap and ways we want to mention ways that you could get involved with both ThinkSTEM and STEM to the Sky. And so if Oana and Annie, if you guys can take it away, or Eileen, sorry, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, sorry. So here on the screen right now, we just have the contact information for our panelists. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to everyone's questions today, but if you have more questions about any aspect of their career or journey, you can feel free to contact them and also check out their link trees and LinkedIn's if you'd like to connect. And I'll just wait a few seconds in case anyone wants to screenshot this page. All right. Yes, and then lastly, we will end with Eileen and Eugen, who will talk about how you can get involved with STEM to the Sky and ThinkSTEM.
Awesome, thanks, Annie. Just first of all, I'd like to say thank you again to the panelists. I really thoroughly enjoyed this so much. And really resonated with everything you guys said. So I wanted to share a little bit about how you guys can get involved with STEM to the Sky if you're interested. So up here on the screen, we have several of our Instagram, Twitter, like LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. So these are like our main social media platforms that you guys should definitely follow for more content coming up. We also have team applications open. So we have several different sub-teams you can join, ranging from marketing and outreach, content development to finance. So there are many opportunities to join STEM to the Sky. And also we encourage everyone to subscribe to our mailing list. So this can be found by scrolling to the very bottom of our website. So if someone could put the website link in the chat again, that'd be awesome, as well as the link to join the team. And then again, here's the website at the bottom, as well as our email, stemtothesky@gmail.com, if you ever have, any questions about the organization or have any feedback at all. And then I'll pass it on to Oana to talk about ThinkSTEM.
Yeah, so shown on the screen is our Instagram account and Twitter, and I'll also be linking our card and website in the chat. I'll pass it over to Sari for a few closing words.
Yeah, and thank you for the messages, Deanna and in the chat. It's so great that you guys could share your experiences today, and it was so amazing hearing from you guys. Yes, so this finally concludes our speaker panel. I'm so sorry we went a little over time, maybe like a couple of minutes, but it was really great to hear you guys speak. And we'd love to hear what you guys thought about our speaker panel today. And so Eileen will be posting a link in the chat. We'd love to hear ways that we can make our speaker panels better, maybe topics that you might be interested in hearing about in future speaker panels. And so please use this feedback form to tell us your thoughts. And we hope you really enjoyed today's session. If you guys have any additional questions or suggestions for STEM to the Sky or ThinkSTEM, please feel free to stay for a few minutes and we'd love to chat with you or fill out the feedback form. And if not, this concludes Think Engineering. Thank you so much again for everyone coming and have a great weekend. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.